So since we're talking about it, it's my understanding, and I haven't seen too much of the whole Davos thing for this year, but
Yeah.
apparently they opened it up with a witch doing a ceremony
Yep.
and coughing on all seven of their kings. And I'm making that number up because I saw it, just a little bit of it, and the number makes sense. Is
Yeah.
it actually seven?
I don't know. I really don't know. It's so creepy and everything when I think about it, and I'm just like I'm not going into that. I'm not diving into that rabbit hole. It's weird. I don't like it. So anyway, back to the book.
back to the back to the point. I want to talk about Sarah. Come on.
Well, yeah, exactly. So like Sarah. So again, like I guarantee you, if you have worked within the workforce for any length of time, you have met a Sarah. You have seen a Sarah, and you have seen her working.
Yep.
I will tell you straight up, I'm working with one right now, and it's just annoying beyond all belief. It's like, come on. So what do I have to do? I have to go in and every so often, and um, what am I thinking? I don't remember what I'm thinking.
You're having one of those days, huh?
I
Normally
am.
you are so fluid.
Yeah, I'm having one of those days. But anyway, I'm just sitting there thinking, like, I have to just. You have to sometimes when it comes to Sarah, you have to play. You have to be better at Sarah's game than her,
Oh,
and
pain in the ass.
it is. It is a pain in the ass. I don't like it. I don't want to play the stupid politics and things like that. But at the same time, like it's when you run into somebody like that and you have to work with them day in and day out, they kind of end up forcing you into that scenario,
Hmm.
and it's not fun.
Yep. So I think part of the challenge is that Sarah was able to. So Sarah was unleashed in this book, right? She was full
Well, she
fledged
was
Sarah,
at the
right?
very beginning of the book. At the beginning of the book, she was
Well,
unleashed.
until the end, right? Until they fix the system,
Well,
right?
it's not just until they fix the system. It's until it was until they started seeing the fruits of well, no. There's an event that happens, and I don't want to spoil the event.
Just we're here. Whoever has listened to our shit and hasn't read the book, fuck them.
Okay,
Go
fine,
ahead and
fine,
spoil it.
fine.
Seriously,
All right.
don't
So,
hold back the goods for all those who did read the damn story.
so Bill at one point finally gets fed up with Steve because Steve keeps like demanding things and keeps like what was the event?
So, yeah. So,
Yeah. So okay. So here's what happens. Sorry,
no, go
I'm
for it. I love uh, your summaries.
Bill goes into a meeting about the Phoenix project and the Phoenix launch, and they're all describing all of these things. And Bill's sitting there giving them warning over and over and over, like multiple times, saying, we should not do it this way. We are leading ourselves down a path that's going to blow up in our faces. And he like writes a memo and he says all this stuff, and he gets chastised by Sarah. He gets chastised by Steve, and then they release the product, the Phoenix project, and it blows up in their faces. And they they end up having these really bad events and things like that are happening, and these incidences that are happening. And finally Bill is kind of like, okay, this is what we're going to go on about. um yeah, that's the scenario that I'm talking about right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's this incident that's happening. Now there's a resource within the department, Brent, who is phenomenal. In an engineering world, you tend to have somebody like this who's just a phenomenal engineer and just goes and does things, and things work because they just go and do things. And if you want something to get done, you usually just put that person on it. But the problem with that person is you have to rein them in carefully, because they are going to go and do things, and they're just going to go and do them, and they're going to break things and not quite recognize that they broke something. Anyway,
We'll talk more about Brent in a minute. I think that's
we
actually
can't.
more fun than talking about Sarah.
Yeah, that is a fun scenario to talk about. So Bill basically sits there and is like, okay, well, we're dealing with this. We're not going to pull in everybody because we need to figure out what the root cause of the scenario is. We're working this. Bill goes home and Steve calls him and is like, you need to get your act together. Everybody needs to get in. I'm telling you what to do. Like basically, Steve, the CEO, is telling the guy step
His
by
seat.
step. No, act. It's
Yeah, yeah, he's acting
he's acting something else because Steve is the
VP
CTO.
of Information Systems or something.
Yeah, hold on. There's a org chart here at the beginning. VP of IT operations. So anyway, all of this to say, so Bill finally says, "All right, you know what? Nope, I'm not going to do what you're saying. I quit." Eh,
Yeah. And there's a whole lot of background we're skipping on that one, but
We are,
I'm going to have it.
but I highly and so I highly recommend you like read the book for it. It's been one of those things like you got to go and you got to look at that, or you got to read it and get a good idea of what's going on with it. Anywho, long and short of it is, so Bill quits and Steve tries to run everything himself, and he ends up running everything into the ground. And
Yep.
then he comes back to Bill and says, "I screwed up, and let's get together." And then he ends up bringing all of the IT leadership together and having a powwow and a get to know each other scenario. And yeah,
Yeah. And then they start getting things on track well.
and once they start doing that, that's when Bill starts to recognize that Sarah is actually not pro Bill and is not, or not pro Steve.
Yep.
Sorry, that's when Steve
Yeah.
starts recognizing that Sarah is not helping him and that Sarah is actually doing everything to further her own career.
Yeah,
And
she's actually trying to divide the company so that
yes,
she could be ahead of part of one of the. It's not said exactly like that, but she's. It shows
yes,
that she's literally trying to divide the company, and it's assumed that she's going to be the CEO of one of the companies that are split off. So it's a way
mm-hmm.
for her to instantly become uh, her career path
Yep, exactly, exactly. And so
while
that's
having a failed project.
yep,
That's pretty badass.
yep, and that's what's kind of going on with everything. It's like cool.
Let there be light.
Light.
So yeah, the and that's kind of fun. That's fun. Let's talk about Brent real quick because we all have the image of Sarah and the while we can't we it's fun to hate on her. She also does have nobody can really tell her to go to hell because everybody is guilty and complicit in
Yep.
not really running the the system that's optimal.
Uh huh.
So it's not just Sarah's fault that things went to hell.
Yeah.
uh it was at every level that there are problems, and
Well,
you can say it's even starts at the CEOs.
it's like when a um, it's like when you let me
It's
think
like
about
when you get in drunken car crash but you're sober, but it's
it.
part your fault because you're driving on the wrong side of the road.
Yes, exactly. No, it's like a plane crash. A plane crash is plane crashes happen for a couple of for because there's a series of incidences that lead up to it. It's not because of a single event. It's a chain of events that happen, and that's kind of what happened. What's going on with the Phoenix Project and Parts Unlimited and everything. Their failure and everything was a systemic failure from the very beginning, and it's everything that was leading up to it. And so that's kind of what Bill is doing, and what Eric was trying to get Bill to do is to change the system and to like essentially reinvent the system to something that was a whole lot better. Um, yeah, there you go. I think that that would be the way to think about it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Um,
But Brent, so you want to talk about Brent? Brent
I want
is
to talk about Brent.
yeah,
Brent's a
Brent
good
is
guy, right? We
he's a
love
good guy.
Brent.
Yep,
So there's two versions of Brent. There's the version of Brent that will do everything he can to help the company, uh, intelligently, quickly, 120 miles an hour, right? Or not 120 miles an hour. Right? We know that's slow. Um, for anybody who drives Massachusetts, we know that's slow. So the 200%, right? He's full there. The problem is that by the nature of Brent being as intelligent as he is, without the ability or time without the time, right? Because it seems like in the end he had the ability to do so, without the time to show what he did, he built up walls around himself of technical debt.
yep,
And I think that's literally what he did. He built up technical debt that was not documented, was not understandable by other people. So you come to him with a problem that you didn't understand, and you got the problem fixed, but you ended up with bigger walls around Brent that only he knew how to fix,
yep,
if he had the time to think about how to fix it when the time came.
yep, yep.
Technical debt.
And on top of that, I will point out, because we had a discussion last time about documentation and everything. He didn't document his procedures, and
Mhm.
nobody documented his procedures. So one of the big things that we do within the tech world. So they're talking about IT, okay? And one of the things that they have to do is stand up servers to help support other support developers, and to support the production line, and to support everything. So one of the things that we do when we start standing up servers is we document the procedure that we have to take to stand up that server. And we get
Mhm.
and sometimes we get extremely detailed of here's exactly how we have to do it. And then anytime that there's an update to that to how we are standing up the procedures and stuff, we end up having to or go and update that documentation. Brent didn't do any of that stuff. He just went and did it. He just knew
Eh,
how to do it. And that's not good, because
he
best
didn't know
example.
how to do it. He figured it out on the spot.
Yes, you're correct. You're correct.
Right. And there's a difference, right? Like problem solving is a whole different thing than specific
Yeah.
enough knowledge. Because if you know how to do something, you can say, do this, this, and that,
Mm-hmm.
right? That was lacking in this case because
Yep.
there's so much technical debt built up. And what people generally don't understand about the technical debt is that there's so many walls of customization and problem solving that he had to figure out the process and he got good at it, right?
Yes.
So not only is he smart and quick, intelligent, he's also getting better and better at solving crazy problems.
Yep. Yep.
Meanwhile, he's building building walls and an ability gap between everybody else to solve the problem.
And that's one of the things that within the developer world, IT world, we constantly have to fight. We
Yeah.
can't let that happen. And it's too easy for us to um it's too easy for us to do that, because we get
Hmm.
like the business come, and this is honestly, this is kind of what ended up happening within the story, and happens in real life, is that the business came and said we need to get this done, and so we let the business needs drive the IT priorities, which,
Hmm.
to be fair, is not wrong, but it's not quite right. You have to balance the business needs and the IT priorities along those lines. And one of the big things within the IT priorities is making sure everybody can do similar things. Because God forbid, like in the example of Brent, God forbid Brent gets into a car accident and is out of work for 6 months at
I
Parts
was waiting the
Unlimited.
whole time for this to happen,
Yeah,
right?
me too. Me
Brent
too.
has a stroke, gets cancer, and the business goes out because there's Brent
Yep.
gone.
But something like that does happen. So we were talking about Sarah and Sarah wanting to trying to work to split up the company. And what Sarah does is she goes off to like Des Moines, Iowa, the middle of nowhere, and brings Brent with her. And people are like, back at Parts Unlimited are like, we need Brent in support of these projects. What the heck is going on? Where is he? And then and like nobody can get a hold of Brent, and so everybody's like freaking out. And finally, somebody gets a hold of Brent, or Brent calls, and it comes out this is what happened. And so Bill then uses that as an excuse to go to Steve and be like, "Hey, Sarah is doing this." And then Steve's like, "Oh no 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 no, we are
No, no,
not
that
let."
it was in a meeting. Yeah, yeah. So there's two stages of no, 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 right? This, which is kind of fun.
Yes. So
Um,
can you tell it, because this is going to be
okay.
great.
So yeah, finally I get to talk today.
Yeah.
Well, I get to gossip. So
Yeah.
so she's out dividing the company, taking Brent the best asset. And she knows this is a bit of sabotage, right? So she knows there's going to be problems around it. It doesn't go into that, but we know this is obvious.
Yep.
So they get Brent back. They send somebody else out to help her, and she complains that you're sabotaging her, and they go deal with it, right? The next iteration of this is she comes back now. They're at a meeting, and she goes, "It's best for the company that we divide, and I would use the resources I want." And Steve says, "You work for me or you're fired.
Yep.
And we
Yep.
are here to rescue the company, not divide it.
Yep.
Pick the door you want."
Yep. Yep.
Took a
And
long time to get to that point, though.
when it got there, it was so satisfying. It was so
Right. Yeah,
satisfying.
it was kind of satisfying moment.
It's one of those things where I'm like, I wish this would happen more often to people. Because it's like,
It's better if it happens early.
yes, it's like my in my situation, the person that I'm currently dealing with, I'm like, I just really want to sit her down and be like, look, you are acting
Sarah,
very,
you need to behave.
yeah.
You're not supporting the company's mission.
Well, it's not so
I
much.
get that you got to be the CEO. You will be, hun. Right? We're cheering
she,
for you.
she will
But here's some
never.
training for you.
This girl will never be CEO. She's too high in neuroticism for it. Um, I just want to sit her down and be like, you are creating more work. You are doing things like in this way. You're acting, your behavior and the way you are acting is not helping the team. It is making it worse in many ways. You need to calm down. You need to step back and let people do things. So anyway, it's just it's one of those
So
like, but anyway, like people like her too. I also know like when you're doing that, when you're constantly being like Sarah, a couple things will happen to them. One is they'll do what Sarah does, and they'll keep going and going and going until they hit a wall like Steve, and someone's going to sit there and give them the ultimatum. The other is they're going to like, people are just going to get fed up with them and recognize her for who she is or who they are, and it's just not going to want to work with them in the future, and then they're going to get fed up and angry with the people around them and leave the company. And then the other one, or another one, is they're going to burn themselves out because they're trying to do way too much beyond their ability to do, because they're sitting there trying to act like the CEO when they're not the CEO. And they're going to get so burnt out with all of that stuff.
yeah, yeah. The Sarah's have those challenges.
Yep.
And Brent's also. So
Yeah. Because the thing with Brent is that they want to solve those problems. They really want to do that. Like that's what they want, and they love it. And
yeah,
that's,
yeah. And Sarah might be that intelligent version of Brent that's
yeah.
on the destructive side of the motivation.
Yep.
It's never said anywhere, but it's kind of, but you can draw your conclusions.
Yep.
So Brent wants the best for the company. He's not building the walls to protect his job, right?
Yep.
But if he were building the walls to protect his job, to make himself needed, this is what becomes apparent in Sarah.
Yes. Yep.
So in the end, they literally say Brent is a good guy. He didn't actually try to build these walls. It was just an effect of poor management.